People often boast that the NHS is the biggest employer in Europe. That's not a boast. That's an admission of its wild inefficiency. And the axing of woke job titles ought to free up a few £100 million too, like diversity officers for a famously diverse organisation. Woke projects, we're led to believe, cost over £7 billion across all government departments, with the state sector paying huge amounts of money for courses on divisive and controversial ideas like gender ideology, which questions the very idea that there is a man or a woman, or critical race theory, again, a contested idea that suggests you're intrinsically racist based upon the colour of your skin. A brave nurse called Amy Gallagher has taken the NHS to court on this very issue. The mental health nurse, who was in the final stages of a 2-year course in forensic psychology, objected to a lecture entitled Whiteness, a Problem of Our Time, where attendees were forced to confront the reality of their white privilege. In another lecture the following month, Miss Gallagher says that she was told Christianity is racist because it's European. Wow. Well, the NHS is full of this nonsense. A review into how the health service and social care sector is managed, entitled The Messenger Report, Shoot the Messenger, found that equality, diversity and inclusion were mentioned 3 times as often as patient care. There's a surprise. Meanwhile, the health service has spent more than £1 million, that's right, £1 million, on hundreds of staff networks using taxpayers' money to put on events around transgender issues, sexuality and racism, often held during the working day. These events have included tea and rainbow cake picnics, a special session about pronouns, and a Filipino martial arts performance. Hiya! There can't be anyone of sound mind now that thinks more money is the answer for the NHS. In a fascinating report this week, the Institute for Fiscal Studies has revealed that spending on the NHS has gone up, with more staffing, just as the service has become worse. It's a complex story, I'll grant you that. But by tackling needless waste, perhaps the nurses could get their pay rise after all. Health bosses just need to spend less time composing leaflets which deny the existence of women, describing breastfeeding as chest feeding and referring to females as people who menstruate. What a bloody nerve. Menstruate, bloody nerve, you're welcome. Here's my point. The NHS would save millions if it stripped out woke nonsense. When people go to a hospital, they don't want a political lecture. They want treatment. I'm delighted now to be joined by the woman mentioned in my big opinion monologue, NHS nurse and psychotherapist Amy Gallagher. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the programme. To what extent has this woke culture infiltrated the NHS in your view?
Oh, a considerable amount. With regards to the report that you were mentioning, it found that there's 10,000 so-called equality diversity roles in the public sector, and that this costs the taxpayer £500 million, which could, the report laid this out quite nicely, could go on around 12,000, paying the salaries of 12,500 nurses. So in the first instance, all this equality and diversity and inclusion is actually stopping the NHS from increasing its workforce because it costs so much. And then on top of that, it doesn't even do what it says on the tin. It says it's about equality, diversity and inclusion, but actually some of the ideas that it pushes are extremely discriminatory and nefarious. And certainly in my case, with my lawsuit, they're pushing ideas of critical race theory, which are not about equality. It's actually treating people differently. So it's completely waste of money, in my opinion, and actually does quite a considerable amount of harm, I would say.
What is your situation now? Because I understand that you were forced to do these workshops whilst studying. So what is your relationship with the NHS right now?
Yeah, so I'm still working as a nurse. There was attempts to have me struck off as a nurse because I disagreed with white privilege and I disagreed with the idea that all white people are racist. But I've been suspended from my training course, training to be a psychotherapist, and that's still. I don't know what's the outcome of that's going to be. I don't know whether I'll be able to qualify as a psychotherapist. There's still negotiations going on, and obviously, I've got my legal team are involved, so I don't know whether I'm going to be allowed to become a psychotherapist. But essentially, they've said I'm not appropriate because I don't have the right views, and my views are not. I just don't think that we should be scapegoating whole groups of people based on their religion or their race. These are views that most people hold.
Critical race theory is just that. It's a theory. It's not fact. But it seems that in certain quarters of the NHS, it's now being sold as fact. And we're seeing a similar situation with gender ideology, where top medics will have you believe that a biological man can become a biological woman. Again, factually impossible, scientifically impossible, but that's what's being taught in the NHS.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think within the area of both race and gender, which comes under the heading of equality and diversity and inclusion, there are ideas that are being pushed that are not evidence-based and actually reject evidence. They don't accept evidence, and actually they see evidence as part of the white supremacy system of oppression or whatever. And actually, it's just pushing an ideology.
And Christianity is racist because it's European. That's an interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously it's actually not a European religion, but some of these people really don't know what they're talking about. But yeah, this is whole part of generally what's called critical social justice, which is an attack on Western values and particular groups.
Plenty of your fellow students would reject the nonsense to which you were subjected, but they've not had your courage to speak up. That's the point, isn't it? You're not a lone voice. You're the one that's put your head above the parapet.
Yeah, that's right. And since I've been in the media and since I've been raising money for my crowdfund, I've had so many people contact me, so many nurses and psychologists and psychotherapists saying essentially, I completely agree with you. I'm so sorry this has happened to you. I feel like I can't speak out. I feel like I have to go along with these ideas. And I thought I was the only one. And actually, there's a lot of people saying, I think I'm the only one. But actually, there's a lot of them that all think that. So there is just a culture of silence, I think, around woke ideology still within the NHS.
Listen, you are a biological female. You're quite old school in that way. But let me tell you, you've got a pair of balls on you. How can people find out about your crowdfunding? Let's give it a plug.
Yeah, so my crowdfunding is at GoFundMe/Stand Up to Woke, and also on Twitter, Stand Up to Woke, all one word. Or you can just Google me, Amy Gallagher, Stand Up to Woke, and you'll find me.